Hello, church family and friends. I'm back with another congregational moment with you today as we are still in this sheltering in. Hopefully it's winding down, but you are using caution every day. I'll tell you this morning about a legend years ago that said after the ascension of Christ, which we are in the church year moving into that since the ascension has passed us by and Pentecost is dead ahead. But that legend said after the ascension and Jesus rose to heaven as the exalted and reigning Christ, all the angels and the host of heaven were very curious about his time on earth. And so they began to ask him questions. Did you found a great movement? Did you have an army that followed you? You commanded? Did you have a lot of followers to follow you around? And Jesus replied, well, I most of the time had good crowds that followed me, but I only had 12 disciples and a few dedicated friends and followers. Wow. Well, they must have been people of exceptional character. They must have been men and women of good character, successful in their careers, and leaders in their community. And Jesus replied again, well, they were just ordinary. I had a tax collector, a few fishermen, and just common working people. Well, they asked, evidently they must have been very loyal then. And Jesus answered, I believe they really wanted to be loyal, but in my hour of crisis, one denied me, one betrayed me, and almost all fled. And they asked, you expect this group of people to carry on your work, this group that you've just described to us? Surely, Jesus, you have an alternative plan. Jesus says, no, I have no alternative plan. I bet you have another group in reserve, don't you? Because it doesn't sound like this group's going to be able to do anything. In which Jesus replied, I have no other group of people. This is the group I am depending on because this is the church. If you studied any of the New Testament, you can see sometimes the humanness of the disciples. It has risen to the top, and we see that, and we can identify that because we are human just like the disciples. Sometimes the disciples were unreliable, just like us. Sometimes they were distracted or discouraged, just like us. Sometimes they became tired and ready to give up, just like us. Sometimes they were inclined to complain and engage in self-pity, just like us. Sometimes they were so insistent of doing their own thing and walking their own way, just like us. But the fact remains that Christ committed and entrusted the ongoing work of the kingdom to us, to the believers, to the church, to those who accepted Jesus as the gift of salvation in their lives. People who have been redeemed, even though we have our humanness, we are still to carry on the work of the Lord. And that's why it takes work. We have to exercise, spiritual exercise. As we come into the Pentecost season, we call that the birthday of the church, when God breathed life into the church. And every day we have to meditate, accept the gift of God, commit our day to God, and read Scripture, study, pray. That's why it's good that we can worship too. Even these little moments, I hope they're beneficial to you. I'm going to leave with you a scripture today from the book of 1 Timothy, chapter 4, verses 7 and 8. Spend your time and energy in the exercise of keeping spiritually fit. Bodily exercise is good, it's all right, but spiritual exercise is much more important and is a tonic for all you do. I pray as we continue to shelter in that you are practicing spiritual exercise and letting God bless you that we can continue being the church in our world today. God bless you. Have a great week.